Oil price power play. How Saudi Arabia and Russia are challenging US and UK economic dominance, ***. The global economic landscape is undergoing a significant power shift, with the strategic alliance between Saudi Arabia and Russia in the realm of energy policy increasingly posing a direct challenge to the economic hegemony of the United States and the United Kingdom. Through coordinated oil production cuts and strategic pricing decisions within the OPEC Plus framework, Riyadh and Moscow are effectively wielding their influence over global energy markets, creating headwinds for Western economies already grappling with inflation and recessionary pressures. This analysis examines the mechanisms through which this Saudi-Russian partnership is impacting the economic stability of the US and UK. The cornerstone of this challenge lies in the control Saudi Arabia and Russia exert over global oil supply. As two of the world's largest crude oil producers, their decisions within OPEC Plus have a direct and immediate impact on international oil prices. Over the past year, despite calls from Washington and London for increased production to lower prices and ease inflationary pressures, Saudi Arabia and Russia have consistently opted for supply cuts. These reductions, often justified as measures to stabilize the market, have had the effect of keeping oil prices elevated. For the US and UK economies, heavily reliant on oil for transportation, industry, and power generation, these higher energy costs translate directly into increased inflation. Elevated fuel prices impact consumers through higher costs at the pump and indirectly through increased prices for goods and services that rely on transportation. This sustained inflationary pressure erodes purchasing power, dampens consumer spending, and complicates the efforts of central banks to manage inflation without triggering a sharp economic downturn. The Federal Reserve in the United States and the Bank of England in the UK have been aggressively raising interest rates to combat inflation. However, these rate hikes risk slowing economic growth and potentially pushing their economies into recession. The coordinated supply cuts from Saudi Arabia and Russia are effectively acting as an external inflationary force, making the central bank's task significantly more challenging. They are forced to tighten monetary policy further than they might otherwise need to, increasing the risk of a hard landing for their economies. Furthermore, the Saudi-Russian oil strategy has geopolitical dimensions that further undermine the influence of the US and UK. For decades, the U.S. has leveraged its economic power and its relationship with Saudi Arabia to maintain a degree of control over global oil markets, often using this influence as a tool of foreign policy. The increasing alignment between Riyadh and Moscow in energy policy signals a shift away from this traditional dynamic. Saudi Arabia, while still maintaining security ties with the U.S., is demonstrating a greater willingness to act independently and in concert with Russia, even when it contradicts the wishes of Washington. This newfound assertiveness from Saudi Arabia, in partnership with Russia, diminishes the ability of the U.S. to use its traditional levers of influence in the Middle East. It also strengthens Russia's hand on the global stage, providing it with a crucial source of revenue at a time when it faces significant economic sanctions from the West due to the conflict in Ukraine. Elevated oil prices, driven by the OPEC Plus supply cuts, are partially offsetting the impact of these sanctions, providing Moscow with financial resources to continue its military operations and weather the economic storm. The UK, facing its own set of economic challenges, including the fallout from Brexit and a cost of living crisis, is similarly vulnerable to higher energy prices. Its reliance on imported oil and gas means that the Saudi-Russian strategy directly contributes to its inflationary woes and further burdens households and businesses. The UK government's ability to address these economic headwinds is constrained by the global nature of energy markets and its limited direct influence over major oil producers. Moreover, the long-term implications of this Saudi-Russian alliance in energy extend beyond immediate economic pressures. It suggests a potential reshaping of the global financial order. The dominance of the U.S. dollar as the primary currency for oil transactions has been a cornerstone of American economic power. If Saudi Arabia and Russia, along with other nations, increasingly explore alternative currencies for oil trade, it could gradually erode the dollar's global standing and, with it, some of the U.S.'s economic leverage. While a complete shift away from the petrodollar system is unlikely in the near future, the trend towards diversification is a significant development to watch. The crushing effect on the U.S. and U.K. economies, while perhaps hyperbolic, reflects the significant headwinds created by the Saudi-Russian oil strategy. It is not a direct and immediate collapse, but rather a sustained pressure that exacerbates existing economic vulnerabilities and complicates policy responses. The higher energy prices act as a drag on growth, contribute to inflation, and limit the flexibility of Western governments and central banks. In conclusion, the strategic alignment between Saudi Arabia and Russia in controlling oil supply represents a significant challenge to the economic dominance of the United States and the United Kingdom. Through coordinated production cuts within OPEC+, they are maintaining elevated oil prices, contributing to inflation and complicating the economic management of Western powers. This power play has geopolitical dimensions, signaling a shift in the traditional dynamics of the Middle East and bolstering Russia's economic resilience. While the long-term consequences are yet to fully unfold, the current trajectory suggests a gradual erosion of Western economic leverage in the face of a more assertive and coordinated energy policy from Riyadh and Moscow. This Saudi-Russia versus USA scenario highlights the enduring power of energy resources in shaping global economic and political landscapes.